I'm excited to read a couple of excerpts here for you. It's an amazing book. It's a book for fans. If you're a fan of my dad, this book is the book that reveals all the parts of him that most people, and even me on some level, didn't know about my dad. And he was a very private person, rarely spoke about his private life. I think he'd written about 100 pages, and he was up to age 7. And the publisher said to him, "This is going to be a very long book, George. We're going to need to work on this. I think we're going to help bring an editor in." So they brought Tony Hendra in, and Tony was a founding member of National Lampoon, was editor-in-chief of Spy Magazine, and he played the manager in Spinal Tap. He's the British manager that the guys fire and hire the girlfriend. So he's a student of comedy. He was also a stand-up comedian in the 60s. So my dad had kind of entrusted him with the process. Sliding headfirst down a vagina with no clothes on and landing in the freshly shaven crotch of a screaming woman did not seem to be part of God's plan for me. At least not at first. I'm not one of those people who can boast of having been a sparkle in his mother's eye. A cinder comes closer. I was conceived in a damp, sand-flecked room of Curly's Hotel in Rockaway Beach, New York, August 1936. A headline in that Saturday's New York Post said, "Hot, sticky, rainy weekend begins. High humidity and temperatures in the 90s send millions to the beaches." At the Paramount Theater in Times Square, Bing Crosby and Frances Farmer starred in Rhythm on the Range. Meanwhile, at Curly's Hotel, Mary and Patrick Carlin starred in yet another doomed Catholic remake of Rhythm in the Sack. Lenny Bruce had begun to be hit with a series of arrests for obscenity in San Francisco, Los Angeles, at 3 different clubs, Chicago, and finally in New York, twice in 2 weeks, at the Cafe Agogo. The British police also deported him from the UK when he tried to perform in London. I was there when Lenny was busted in Chicago. In fact, I went to jail with him. It was in December 1962 at the Gate of Horn. Bob Carey of the Terriers, one of my folky friends, and I were drinking beer upstairs and watching Lenny be his usual genius self. Suddenly, a policeman stands up in the audience and says, just like they do on a street corner when someone gets shot or run down and a crowd gathers, "All right, the show's over." He actually said it, not as a metaphor, but as a literal piece of information being transmitted to the audience by someone in authority. "All right, the show's over." Just wonderful. They hauled Lenny away. Lenny had been busted so often that he always wore his coat during performances so he could leave immediately with the police. He didn't want to get separated from that coat. It was a nice piece of cashmere. Kelly often ended up being the arbitrator between us. She was the one who said what we never did. Let's save this marriage. At the Nepean High, in the depths of this cocaine madness, she attempted an actual intervention. At 10 years old, she was going to solve everything. The trigger of it was that Brenda and I had taken knives to each other. We hadn't stuck them in each other's flesh,